TPT shafts. Now that is a shaft logo that you're going to become more and more familiar with. Just used by Jason Day to win this weekend, last weekend just before the USPGA. It's a brand that's been around a few years now, but have gone through a branding change to go to the yellow and black graphics because previously they were a little bit muted. Got a few ranges of shafts, but going to differentiate between the red range, the power range, which was out previously, and the model that Mr. Day used to win, which technically has been called a prototype, but this is the new Nitro range, which is a completely new structure. So with the red range, they've got a low and a high, which they do a low and a high profile in the Nitro as well. So we're going to be comparing the low ranges of the two models. So the main thing with this is TPT thin ply technology, and very, very high grade materials, very, very fine layer materials. It's done rather than wrapping different layers of graphite in one weave onto the mandrel. This is done with a single layer continuous roll. So what you don't get is you don't get different angles, so kind of, I guess, sort of dispersion of energy through the shaft. You haven't got any kind of cross layering within different layers. It's just a single layer wrapped round, round, round. So continuous flow. So from a principal point of view, that allows you to get more feel, but more consistency through the shaft. So this one, going to compare the two shafts with a similar weight. So in order to get the same weight, the red range, the power range, we're using the 18. This is a 64 gram shaft. So it's a 3.9 torque, but spec-wise, the numbers on the shafts as they go up, so 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, that the weight goes down. So the lower the number, the heavier the weight, and the structurally the stiffer the shaft. So we have to use the 18 in this one to get a 64 gram, a 3.9 torque. In the Nitro range, we go to the 17 low. So the 17, technically, it's stiffer profile being a lower number, but it's a 60 gram. So it's actually a little bit lighter with a 3.3 torque. But in terms of CPM values, it's 25 CPM firmer. So at the same weight, it allows them to get more rigidity, more stability. So they yet to release the full technical spec. So what we do know about this, the full release date on this is 29th of May, and being one of the 3 flagship stores in the UK, we're able to get them a little bit earlier. But all we do know about it's a completely different weave of composite, a different material, completely different usage on the mandrel and how they're layered up and wrapped, but a stiffer, lower torque property material. So totally different structural shaft to the red range. So it's allowed them to go lighter and a more rigid feel. Now that explains why someone like Jason Day is using this. It's a tighter feel. We're going to hit a couple with each one. So comparing a similar weight as we can, give you a little bit of data, a little bit of talk about the feel, and then if you want to come and test them, we've got all of the ranges here, just updating the last ones into the demo rack. So known originally for the lighter weights, a lot of the long drive players are using these. So I think at the World Long Drives recently, it was something like 75–80% of the field were using a TPT shaft. So what you do get in the red range is definitely a feel of loading, a feel of responsiveness, even in the low series, proportionate to the weight and the stability, the structural stability of the shaft. So a little bit of kick through the shaft. You generally, because of the weight of the shaft, you'll feel a little bit of loading through that center section, a little bit of pop, but for a strike which wasn't completely out the middle, very, very stable spin. So I've always been a relatively spinny player. Got this in the Cobra head, the Aerojet LS head, so going a low spin head. So in terms of how it swings, the high series in both of them are a little higher balance point. The low, a little bit more structure in the tip, balance point a little bit nearer the bottom. So anyone who has a little bit of a pull on the handle, you're going to get a bit of feel for the club head end out of this. Relative to weight and stability at impact, a little bit of loading through the center. Definitely get a bit of responsiveness to it, but very solid impact. And you can see from the flight numbers there, very nice, stable launch and spin. So something like this allows you to get a bit of feedback. It's a relatively mid to upper mid torque for a shaft of this low spin and stability. And it's the quality of material that allows them to achieve that combination of responsiveness and then structural rigidity and stability through impact. So if I then switch to the Nitro, so visuals very, very similar. Obviously the base logoing is the same. The main point of difference, and I'll pop this up to camera in a moment, and the way you differentiate and tell which shaft is which, is in the colour of the denomination on the shaft. So we have gold on the top for the Nitro range, red on the bottom for the power range, tradition of the red range. So that visually is the only difference. Very, very similar look on the, very slightly different look to the graphite showing through, but you can see the pattern of the graphite underneath. But what you're going to find out of the Nitro range, swing weight's a little bit lighter, shaft to shaft. Granted, it's a couple of grams lighter. There's about 0.3, 0.4 of a swing weight point difference. The pickup in the shaft's a little bit less heavy. Again, the type of material change they've gone to get that rigidity in the tip without having to layer it up and get more material there. They're a bit like the, say the TR and the Ventus. There's more material in the butt section, drags the balance points up. There's less material, as I understand it, certainly a naturally stiffer material in the tip. That means less weight in that bottom end, slightly more even balance through the shaft. So definitely the pickup's a little bit lighter. Being 25 cycles firmer, visually you're not going to see quite as much or feel quite as much movement in the shaft. But definitely a crisper, tighter feel all the way through the shaft. So that one was a little bit necky, so it's not going to really show spin-wise. I'm going to do another one there. Say neutral face and a fade denotes heel contact. So unfortunately that's the soft bit on the end, but it's a very, very solid feel. So certainly you're going to feel like you can get into this and be more aggressive with this shaft than maybe the red range. Should be a slightly more solid contact. And so what we can see from that, again, actually really quite similar numbers, 13 on launch, 2-1 on spin, whereas the red range I think was maybe a hair lower on spin, but actually from a feedback and a feel point of view, a much more stout, tighter feel through impact. So for someone who is a little bit more aggressive and likes to really feel that kind of the shaft hanging onto the club face, this shaft really feels that you can get through it and the shaft's not giving out on you at all. There's lots of stability there. Whereas the red range is going to suit someone who has just a little bit of a, maybe slightly quieter, who likes to feel a bit more responsiveness out the shaft. But because of the difference in materials, they're really quite different to use. So if we were to use the same number denomination, got the 17 low in the Nitro and the 18 low here, if we use a 17, to get a similar level of stability, in the red range, it's 8 grams heavier. So that's why I've used the different numbers, the 18 to the 17, because they're closer to one another. So the Nitro is the range, say, that Jason Day just used. He was using a 15 low in that, so 70 gram in that one, which was, up until recently, was called a prototype. Material-wise, fascinating materials, really high quality, really high grade. They do specific driver fairway hybrid shafts in the power range, the red range, just driver so far in the Nitro, but I would expect to see that developed over the years. But in terms of product, great quality materials, relatively new on the scene, but I think we're going to start to see a little bit more usage of that on tour coming up. But ultimately, quality materials equals quality results. So if you want to test them, we've got the whole range in or being put into the demo racks very, very shortly. Any interest or any questions in testing that, please let us know, and we look forward to seeing you.